We'll talk about that.
Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No, you're fine. All right, so I want to do a quick review on mean, median, and mode because the next class we're going to talk about a little more advanced statistical topics. And so I feel like all of us have some background for mean, median, and mode, so I just want to kind of remind you what those are. The mean is the same as usually the average. People use those words interchangeably. The formula for mean is basically the sum of all the values divided by the number of values. Okay, so we'll practice one of those in a minute. What about the median? Like the median of the highway you're driving on is the what? The middle, okay? So the median is the middle value. Or if there's two that are tied for the middle, it's the average of the two middle values. But make sure the second requirement is met. The values have to be in order. What about the mode? Does anybody remember what the mode is from another class maybe? Yeah, so it's the most frequent value. So we discuss mean, median, and mode together because they are basically all ways to talk about the middle. So these values are all called the measures of central tendency. It's really, really fancy terminology. But it just means like what are the values tending towards, okay? We use these to predict future data. It would be kind of useless if we didn't have a point in combining them or summarizing them in some way. So the point of finding the mean, median, and the mode is used to predict future data. And frankly, sometimes some of these, or one of these three is better than the other two at kind of determining what you can expect the values to be. Okay. So have any of you looked up the salary that you can expect in the field that you plan to major in? If you haven't done that, you probably should. Okay. So I don't know if you've noticed, but which of the three does it usually give you when you look up the salary of your field? It doesn't usually give you mean or mode. What does it usually give you? Usually not even the average. That would be mean. It actually usually gives you the median. Okay, and we're going to talk about why in a little bit. But if you look up the salary that you can expect in your field, sometimes the median is the better way to go. So let's do a couple examples, and then we'll talk about maybe why the median is often a little more predictable than the mean even. So it's going to be the next section, sort of.
Okay.
The next section is a weighted average, but we can't really go to the more complicated average until we do regular average. So it's more of kind of a precursor to that, which is why we're doing it today, honestly. So let's say I asked you to find the mean, median, and mode of the following numbers. Okay, notice I already put them in order for you, okay, which will come into play when we do median. But for now, the mean, we just need to find the sum divided by what? However many numbers there are, right? And how many numbers are there?
7.
There are 7 numbers, okay? So we would do 39 is the sum you get divided by 7, which comes out to be about 5.57. Okay. The median, remember the median is the what value? The middle, and if there are 2 middles, you average the 2 middles, but this one has a clear middle. Like this number's in the middle, right? If you notice that they're already in order. So the median is just 4. Okay, Okay, the mode's pretty easy to pick out too. What's the mode? 3. Okay. What I want you to note is that the mean is larger than the other two. And why is it larger? Because it includes one number that is kind of a lot higher than the others, right? It includes a number that's considerably higher than the rest of the list. So the mean is larger than the other two because one value is very high. Okay, so using that observation, why do you think a lot of times we won't report like the mean salary of a certain job? Do you really want like the absolute highest executive in your field thrown in there? That's probably not traditionally what you can expect, okay? The best example of this, and it literally has to do with salary, is everybody knows who Michael Jordan is, right? Probably watched the Last Dance documentary during COVID, right? Because she had nothing else to do. But he was a geology major from the University of North Carolina, as in the study of rocks, okay? Has nothing to do with what he decided to do for a career, obviously. And so the geology department wanted to put out a pamphlet to try to get people to major in geology, and they sent out emails or whatever to all of their alumni and said, like, what kind of salary are you making right now? And then they compiled that information together and did a mean to figure out what they could tell future freshmen, this is what you can expect to make as a geology major. Well, unbeknownst to them, because they didn't check their data, that was problem number one, he responded, and he responded with whatever his ungodly salary is. I don't even know what it is, okay, like $15 million a year, when all the other geology majors were reporting things like $50,000 a year and $60,000 a year, normal salaries like that. And then he reported his super, super high salary, and it pulled the average up, and they actually printed the pamphlet without checking the numbers, okay? So his one crazy big number really threw the mean off, right? What would have been better? If they would have used the median, would his crazy big number even, look, notice this 15 here is big, but it doesn't affect the 4 at all, right? Like, so that's why the median is sometimes better, because what you really want to know is what you can predict. You don't really want Michael Jordan's crazy values thrown in there, right? So that's a reason why we often use median rather than mean. Mean is helpful, but it is very much affected by large and small values, so you have to kind of be cautious of that. So let's look at maybe a couple maybe quick problems. So find the mean, the median, and the mode of, let's say that I gave a quiz where this was the grades. 4 students got 90s, 10 got 80, 8 got 70, and let's say that 2 got a 60, and that's it. Nobody scored lower than that. Okay, so I'm going to start with the mode and the median because I think those are easy. The mode in particular is easy, right? The mode is just the most frequent value. So what's the most frequent grade on this quiz? 80. Okay, even the median is kind of easy to pick out if you think about that you just want the middle, right? So how many values are there? There's 24 students, right? So we want like about the 12th-ish student, right? Notice the 12th-ish student if you listed these all in order. And by the way, we're working from lowest to highest, so you need to make sure you think of that. Which category would the 12th student be in? If you put them in order, it'd be here, right? So the median is also going to be 80. Okay, now you could actually list them all out, but I'm trying to give you some shorthand where maybe you don't have to do that as much, okay? So the middle student would definitely be in this category if you were to list them all out in order. The mean, even we can shorten up a little bit. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to add 24 numbers together. And we shouldn't really have to if we just do it a little smarter. So we can just do it like this. I have 4 90s. I have 10 80s. I have 8 70s. And I have 2 60s. But I still need to divide all of those by what? How many students total am I talking about still? Still 24. But notice like how much quicker it will be to do it like this, right? And we're going to use this strategy next week as well. So just to save time, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what it is. So it comes out to be about 76.67. Okay. So when you have lists of values like that, it can make sense to just quicker figure it. So find the mean, median, and the mode of the favorite color. So let's say I did a big survey of a bunch of people and I tracked these 3 colors. And this is the responses that I got. 205 said red, 310 said blue, and 150 said green. So notice that the mode is really easy to pick out, right? The mode is the most frequent color, which was what? Blue. Okay. But notice that if I try to pick a median, there's actually not going to be a median. It doesn't really make sense to kind of order these. Does that make sense? Like they're not numeric data, right? It's color data. So there's actually no median and no mode. No mean. Okay. Because color doesn't really make sense to order. So I'm going to say color doesn't get ordered or added up, etc. Like it wouldn't make sense to find the median or the mean. Okay, so if this were the data you were looking at, then mode would be the most, really the only one that makes sense. Okay. So next week what we're going to look at is a little bit more on mean, but we're going to look at some things of how do you figure out the mean when the values aren't equally likely. For instance, you cannot just take your grades in my class and add them up and divide by how many grades there were to figure out your average in my class. How come?
They're different weighted.
They're different weighted, right? Like tests are worth more than homework assignments, projects are worth more than homework assignments, and so on and so forth. Okay. So next week we're going to talk about how to do a weighted average, how to weight things appropriately when they're not equally likely or equally weighted.